You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV from Toronto, Ontario. I'm Katherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Today, an interview with a professor of Renison College about what it's like to teach Arabic and Islamic studies in a post-9/11 era. But first, some news headlines. Trudeau's Liberals win minority government in Canada's election. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's Liberals have won the country's legislative elections, but it's only a half victory for the incumbent leader, who failed to gain a majority in Parliament. The number of seats each party won won't be all that different from previous election in 2019. The numbers are still being tallied, but it looks as if the Conservatives will have 2 fewer seats than before and the NDP 1 more. Counting all the mail-in ballots will take a few days. According to Elections Canada, 1 million ballots came in this year. Ballots mailed in from within a voter's riding are going through an integrity check. This is to make sure that outer envelopes are signed and the voter has not voted in person. Today is the start of Alberta's Proof of Vaccination program. The Proof of Vaccination program begins today in Alberta. Premier Kenney, who was previously opposed to the idea, now says that it is necessary to protect Albertan hospitals from being overwhelmed. The program is not restricting businesses or venues to capacity limits as long as someone shows proof of vaccination or a negative test result. The program is relevant to restaurants, nightclubs, casinos, concerts, and fitness facilities. Albertans will be able to print out their records for free at local registries from September 21. In order to avoid forgery of the PDF version of the records, a more secure QR code will be available soon. Muslims in Mississauga donate $1 million to local hospital. The Muslim community in Mississauga has donated $1 million to the Trillium Health Foundation. The Imam of Sayyida Khadija Center, Dr. Hamid Slimi, presented a check for $250,000 to the foundation at a barbecue on Sunday. Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie, who attended, thanked the Muslim community for their generous donation. The check brings the donations to a total of $1 million. Abdul Qayyum Mufti, a Trillium Health Partners Foundation board member, has spearheaded the campaign. In August, he announced that the Muslim community had pledged to donate $5 million to the hospital redevelopment. The Trillium Health Foundation says the Muslim community's commitment is the largest Muslim donation to a hospital in Canadian history. Professor Intisar Rab appointed Special Advisor to International Criminal Court. International Criminal Court prosecutor Karim Khan announced the appointment of 17 experts as special advisors. Appointees represent different world regions. They bring cultural, linguistic, and gender diversity to the court. 3 Muslim Americans are included. Intisar Rab, Professor of Law and History at Harvard University, Professor Leila Nadia Sadat of Washington University School of Law, and Ali Souvan, the Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Soufan Group. That's it for the news. We turn now to our interview with Dr. Emil Al-Azaraki. Joining us today is Dr. Amir Al-Azraki, who is a playwright and also an assistant professor in the Studies in Islamic and Arab Cultures at Renison University College, affiliated with the University of Waterloo. Thank you for joining us today, Dr. Amir.
Thank you for having me.
So today we're going to talk to you about what's it like to teach the Arabic language and Islamic cultures in the post-9/11 era. Last week, we commemorated the 20th anniversary of 9/11. So talk to us a little bit of what it's been like for you as a professor at the University of Renison College, University of Waterloo, teaching Arabic language and Islamic cultures in this post-9/11 era.
Thank you. I believe that after the tragic event of 9/11, unfortunately, the image of Arabs and Muslims have been demonized, pejoratively portrayed in the main, I would say, Western media. So the need to clarify that situation, the need to educate people about Islam and Muslims and Arabs is to one of the methods is to educate people through the university and programs. So teaching Arabic, teaching Arab and Muslim cultures actually help to educate people and raise awareness about who the Muslims are. And in the media, unfortunately, Arabs and Muslims are depicted pejoratively. We're not a bunch of crazy fanatics. We're people whose civilization and culture have positively contributed to the world and also impacted positively on the world. So through the programs, through the courses that I teach and my colleagues as well in the same program, which is the program Studies in Islamic and Arab Cultures, we teach courses related to Muslim cultures. So we explore the diversity and richness of Muslim cultures through different aspects such as music, theater, arts, language, literature, history, etc. And by doing this is to bring multiple perspectives to deconstruct essentialist caricatures of religions, of Islam here, of Muslim cultures, and also to deconstruct the stereotypes that are imposed by Western media, unfortunately, pejorative stereotypes.
So do you have mostly Muslim or non-Muslim students?
I have mix. I have Muslims and non-Muslim students as well.
And have you ever experienced, like, personally discrimination from the non-Muslim students? Quite a lot of them come in with what I call the CNN or the Fox News effect, which is that negative view of Islam and Muslims as a violent religion. How does it affect you personally, this media images?
So some students come with these stereotypes about Muslims and Islam. But I would say most of them are very keen to learn about Islam and Muslim culture and the richness of this culture as well. So they raise questions. They want to understand issues related to the lives of Muslims here and back home. In diaspora and back in the Muslim world. Personally, I haven't experienced any issues with students. Fortunately, most of them are coming to learn, to be educated about Islam and Muslim culture. And I'm talking about Renison University students.
Well, I know that you're also a playwright. So what is it about the theatre that draws you in as a way to explore these issues?
Well, theater for me is my passion. Theater is life, and life is theater. I believe that every human being is capable of theater. And as Shakespeare says, all the world is a stage. I believe that theater is one of the most powerful tools which can play a very important humanistic and interventionist role in transforming our lives. I believe that theater educates, stimulates, empowers, promotes dialogue, and advocates for new voices as well. So theater is really one of the most important and powerful tools to use as a platform to discuss issues related to social justice. One of them is like a stereotype and Islamophobia and all kind of phobias and oppression situations.
Professors are often known to be boring in lecturing. Do you bring the theatre method into the classroom?
Yes, I do. I use it as one of my teaching methods, and especially theater called, this is a kind of theater that is originated in Brazil. It's called theater of the oppressed. And one of the techniques of theater of the oppressed is called form theater. So I use that in classroom. Form theater is a very democratic and unique platform that give the students the freedom and the space to explore ideas and also to intervene for possible solutions in addressing issues related to, for example, to social justice, like issues of social justice. So I use form theater technique in my classroom, and I give students this space as a free space to explore those problematic issues. And this kind of theater, if you allow me to elaborate, this kind of theater is a theater where where participants, I would say, sorry, where spectators are no longer spectators, they are actors. They're invited to intervene and change the situation depicted or enacted on the stage or in the classroom, in that classroom. Yeah.
So pretend I'm a student in the classroom. Can you how does it work? You give a scenario and then it's improv, or you give a script? Like how does that actually work?
So it depends on the situation. So, but the first thing is to identify the scenario, to identify the issue, and then we hinge on. I ask students to come up with a scenario to where this issue is present, and then I ask them to enact it as it is, and then the second performance of the same scenario, I'll ask the students to intervene, to replace one of the actors, or to suggest something to the actors to do in order to deal and address the issue on the stage or enacted. So so students who are audience are no longer passive audience. They actually intervene, replace actors, or suggest something to the actors on the stage in order to solve the problem, in order to empower the oppressed as well. So they try different possibilities, but by the end, we also, at the end, we also have a dialogue and feedback and conversation about the same issue. So this practice, in my opinion, empowers students to be active, I would say, participants instead of just passive spectators.
Theatre and acting can really tap into deep emotions. So how would you handle it if a student came with like a very racist dialogue, oh, you Muslims are this and that and violent, and how do you kind of manage that emotion in the classroom?
Unfortunately, you haven't had that yet, but I understand your question is the theater of the oppressed. One of the main roles in theater of the oppressed is the role of the joker. We call the person the joker or the facilitator. The facilitator should be very well trained in handling situations like this. If we have students who have, let's say, as you said, aggressive and very racist, etc., the issue is to contain that first and to educate that person through action, like through involvement, making that person being involved in the action or enactment of that situation. But if it gets really like violent or very like uncontrollable, then theater of the oppressed said very clearly to the audience or participants before the performance start that we are seeking non-violent, non-magic solution for the situation presented. So again, when we have such situation, the facilitator, the joker, should handle that situation, but usually it's this kind of attitude is also important for the theater of the oppressed, because it helps engage the audience more, to help the audience to intervene and try to solve, try to deal, try to create change, and for that.
That's really interesting. So that's a very powerful way to introduce students to the issues of social justice and Islamophobia. And can you share with us in closing, just quickly in 1 minute, any memorable moments where you've seen a light go off in a student's head, or you can really see that you've used this method to make an impact on getting rid of anti-Muslim racism?
Unfortunately, I haven't explored theater of the oppressed for Islamophobia yet, but explored it in different oppression situations. And every time we do this, many members of the audience, participants, they come to us and they really they thank all the people who participated, and they say this is very powerful. This is we want more of these kind of experiments, like with theater. We felt like we were very we're moved. We want to do more. We are doing something instead of just watching, or especially for students. Theater of the Oppressed take students from their desks and from their intellectual, I would say, context to the action. So they, instead of just sitting and discussing ideas and analyzing and participating in these discussions, they actually act their ideas. They enact them. They see them. They participate in them. They are involved in not only in their head, but they are actually involved on stage. And the originator or the thinker behind this Theater of the Oppressed says, his name is Augusto Boal. He said, Theater of the Oppressed is, or form theater in particular, is a rehearsal for revolution or for change. And it's not enough for especially this kind of a practice, which is influenced by pedagogy of the oppressed by Paulo Freire, that it combined both the recognition, what we call it, the praxis. So it's the action, the activism, and the thinking and reflection together, and not just separate. Reflection is not enough by itself, and action without reflection is also not enough. They should go together to address issues related to social justice.
Very wise, very powerful tool. Well, we thank you for coming on the show today to sharing it with us. Thank you, Dr. Emil Al-Azaraki.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
You're watching Canadian Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. That's it from us. Stay tuned for our next episode. Stay safe and God bless.